The late afternoon sun was sinking low over the asphalt of Route 6, casting long, distorted shadows across the gravel parking lot of the rusty Anchor Diner. Outside, parked in a perfect, gleaming row, sat half a dozen heavy cruisers. Their chrome caught the last of the dying light, reflecting the dusty orange sky. Inside the diner, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of fried onions, stale coffee, and motor oil. Seated at the large corner booth were the members of the Red Mountain Rangers, a local motorcycle club whose reputation preceded them. To an outsider, they looked terrifying. They were large, broad-shouldered men clad in worn black leather vests adorned with patches, their arms covered in faded ink, their faces hidden behind thick, grimy beards. At the head of the table sat Marcus "Bear" Miller, a man whose massive frame and stern expression could quiet a room just by walking into it. Next to him was Stitch, a former army medic turned mechanic, and Preacher, a soft-spoken giant who got his nickname from his habit of delivering quiet wisdom before things got out of hand. They were laughing, trading stories of the road and nursing mugs of black coffee, when the heavy glass door of the diner was suddenly thrown open. The laughter at the table died instantly. A little girl, no older than 6, stood in the doorway. She was breathing in short, ragged gasps, her tiny frame shivering despite the oppressive summer heat. Her yellow sundress was torn at the shoulder and smudged with dirt. Her bare feet were scraped and bleeding from running over the sharp gravel of the highway. Tear tracks cut clean paths through the dust on her cheeks. She looked around the diner, her wide, terrified eyes skipping past the frightened waitress and the elderly couple in the booth near the kitchen. Her gaze locked onto the table of imposing, leather-clad bikers. Without a second thought, she sprinted toward them. She collided with Bear's legs, burying her tear-streaked face into his heavy leather chaps. Her tiny hands gripped the rough material with a strength born of pure desperation. "Help," she sobbed, her voice cracking. "Please, you have to help. They're beating my mama. They're gonna kill her." The diner fell into a dead, suffocating silence. Bear froze for a fraction of a second. A man of his size and history was used to people shrinking away from him, not running to him for protection. But the hesitation vanished instantly. He knelt down, his massive knees hitting the dirty linoleum floor with a heavy thud, bringing him eye level with the trembling child. He placed 2 massive, calloused hands gently on her shoulders. Despite his intimidating size, his voice was remarkably soft, like a low, comforting rumble. "Hey, sweetheart," Bear said, his eyes scanning her face for injuries. "Take a breath. You're safe now. What's your name?" "Lily," she whimpered, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "All right, Lily. I'm Bear, and these are my brothers. Nobody is going to hurt you here," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "Tell me where your mama is." "Down the dirt road, the blue trailer with the broken fence," Lily cried, pointing a trembling finger back toward the highway. "Mark and his friend, they locked the door. They were throwing things. Mama was on the floor, and she screamed at me to run. I ran through the woods. Please, Bear, they're hurting her." As Lily spoke, the atmosphere inside the diner shifted. The relaxed, lazy demeanor of the Red Mountain Rangers evaporated, replaced by a cold, quiet fury. Preacher stood up first, his face hardening into granite. Stitch and the other 3 riders followed suit, their hands instinctively dropping to their sides. Bear looked up at Stitch. "Call the sheriff. Tell him we're heading to the blue trailer on Miller's Lane." Stitch nodded, already pulling out his phone. Bear turned his attention back to Lily. He unbuttoned his heavy leather vest, the emblem of his club proudly displayed on the back, and wrapped it around her small, shivering shoulders. It swallowed her completely, smelling of leather, rain, and tobacco, but to Lily, it felt like a fortress. "Preacher," Bear ordered. "Stay here with Lily. Keep her safe. The rest of you, mount up." "I'm coming with you, Bear," Preacher argued quietly, his chest rising. "No," Bear said, looking Preacher dead in the eye. She trusts us. She needs one of us here so she knows we're coming back. Keep her safe. That's an order. Preacher looked at the little girl, his expression softening. He nodded, stepping forward to take Lily's hand. I got her, brother. Go. Outside, the silence of the evening was shattered by the thunderous roar of 5 heavy V-twin engines. The bikes kicked up a cloud of dust as they tore out of the parking lot, hurtling down the highway before veering onto the overgrown dirt road that Lily had pointed out. Bear led the pack, his heart hammering against his ribs. He didn't know who Mark was, and he didn't care. In the biker's code, there were absolute lines you did not cross. You did not harm children, and you did not lay a hand on a woman. The blue trailer appeared through the trees. It was run down, with trash strewn across the yard and a rusted pickup truck parked crookedly near the porch. As the bikers roared into the yard, cutting their engines, the silence that followed was broken by a muffled, shattered scream from inside the trailer, followed by the sound of heavy glass breaking. Bear didn't wait. He dismounted his bike in one fluid motion and marched toward the porch, his heavy boots thudding against the wooden steps. Stitch and the others were right on his heels. He didn't bother knocking. Bear raised his boot and drove it directly into the lock of the cheap wooden door. The frame splintered with a deafening crack, and the door flew inward, crashing against the interior wall. Inside, the living room was in shambles. A coffee table lay overturned, and papers and broken glass littered the floor. In the center of the room, a young woman was on her knees, clutching her bruised face. Standing over her was a tall, gaunt man with a wild look in his eyes, his fist raised. Another man sat on the couch, holding a beer, laughing. The laughter stopped instantly as 5 giant, leather-clad men spilled into the room, filling the cramped space with an overwhelming aura of menace. Mark, the man standing over the woman, spun around, his face turning pale. Who the hell are you? Get the hell out of my house, he yelled, though his voice trembled. Bear didn't say a word. He stepped over the broken door frame, his eyes locking onto the bruised and terrified woman on the floor. You Mark? Bear asked, his voice dangerously low. Yeah, I'm Mark. And this is private property. I'll call the cops. We already called them, Stitch said from behind Bear, crossing his arms. They're on their way. But they're a few minutes out. We're here now. Mark's friend on the couch stood up, reaching for an empty beer bottle on the table. Before his fingers could even close around the glass, Stitch stepped forward, grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, and slammed him back down onto the cushions with enough force to knock the wind out of him. Sit down and shut up, Stitch growled. The man complied, freezing in place, his eyes wide with terror. Mark looked at Bear, then at the other 3 bikers flanking him. Realizing he was entirely outmatched, he took a step back, raising his hands. Look, man, this is a domestic dispute. It's none of your business. She was acting up, I was just. He didn't get to finish the sentence. Bear moved with a speed that defied his massive size. He closed the distance between them, grabbed Mark by the front of his shirt, and lifted him completely off his feet. With a grunt of effort, Bear hurled him backward. Mark crashed into the drywall, sliding down to the floor in a dazed, groaning heap. Bear stood over him, towering like a shadow of doom. He pointed a thick, scarred finger at Mark's face. If you move, if you even look at her, I will personally show you what a real beating feels like, Bear whispered. The absolute certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. Mark cowered against the wall, clutching his ribs, whimpering. Bear turned his back on him, completely dismissing him, and knelt down next to the woman on the floor. Up close, he could see the swelling on her cheek and the sheer terror in her eyes. Ma'am, Bear said, his tone shifting instantly from ferocious to incredibly gentle. Your daughter, Lily. She ran to us. She's safe. She's at the diner with one of my brothers. The woman's eyes welled with fresh tears, but this time, they were tears of profound relief. Lily, she's okay. She's completely safe, Bear assured her, offering her a hand. My name is Bear. Let's get you out of here. He helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as her legs trembled. She clung to his arm, shivering. I'm Sarah, she whispered. Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens echoed through the trees. The local sheriff's deputies arrived, their blue and red lights painting the rundown trailer park in vibrant hues. They found Mark and his friend sitting silently on the floor, guarded by 3 silent, unmoving bikers. The deputies, who knew the Red Mountain Rangers well, didn't ask too many questions. They saw Sarah's bruises, they saw the broken door, and they saw the fear in Mark's eyes. Mark and his accomplice were handcuffed and led out to the patrol cars. As the deputies wrapped a blanket around Sarah's shoulders, the sheriff walked up to Bear. We'll take her statement and get her to the clinic to get checked out, Bear, the sheriff said. But what about the kid? She's at the Rusty Anchor, Bear replied, wiping a smear of dust from his forehead. We'll bring her mother there. They need to be together. An hour later, the police cruiser pulled into the parking lot of the Rusty Anchor. Sarah stepped out of the car, her face bandaged but her posture upright. From the porch of the diner, Lily saw her mother. She let go of Preacher's hand, took off the massive leather vest that was draped over her shoulders, and sprinted across the gravel. Mama! Mama! Sarah fell to her knees, catching her daughter in her arms. They clung to each other, weeping, as the bikers watched from a distance. Preacher walked over to Bear, handing him his leather vest. Bear took it, slipping it back over his broad shoulders. He looked at the mother and daughter, a quiet sense of satisfaction settling in his chest. They have anywhere to go? Stitch asked, leaning against his bike. Sheriff says she has a sister 2 towns over, but no car, and no money to get there, Bear replied. Mark took everything she had. The bikers looked at each other. No words needed to be spoken. Bear walked over to Sarah and Lily. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick wad of cash, money the club had pooled together from their weekend run. He pressed it into Sarah's hand. This will get you to your sister's, Bear said. Stitch is going to fix up that rusted truck in your yard tomorrow so you have a reliable ride. And if Mark, or anyone else like him, ever comes near you or Lily again. He reached into his vest pocket and handed her a small, laminated card with the Red Mountain Rangers logo and a phone number printed on it. You call this number. We're only ever 1 call away. Sarah looked at the money, then at the card, and finally up at the giant man standing before her. Her voice caught in her throat. I don't know how to thank you. You saved us. What can I ever do to repay you? Bear offered a rare, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He looked down at Lily, who was looking up at him like he was a real-life superhero. Just take care of this little one, Bear said softly. She's a brave kid. With a final nod, Bear turned and walked back to his bike. He swung his leg over the saddle, kicked the starter, and the engine roared to life. The other Rangers followed suit, the collective rumble of their machines echoing across the highway like rolling thunder. As they rode off into the cool night air, the red taillights fading into the darkness, they left behind a mother and a daughter who were no longer afraid. They left behind a broken cycle of abuse, a community that knew they were protected, and a little girl who would grow up knowing that sometimes, the heroes of the story don't wear capes, they wear leather.